Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. My name is HDTGeorge, and this is the audio TWAB for October the 13th, 2022. If you would, down below this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. This is a simple audio reading of the TWAB. As always, no hot takes, no opinions, just the words of the TWAB. This week at Bungie, 10/13/2022. Happy TWAB's Day, Guardians. This week we are back with a bit of a hefty TWAB, including some weapons and the economy changes mentioned last week. So sit tight because we are going to be passing the mic to a few different teams to chat with us all today. Trick or treat. We also wanted to call out a reminder for Festival of the Lost starting next week. Our social channels will have the trailer Tuesday morning, but before we share all of the candy and goodies, we wanted to share our newest costumes. Wait a second, this is Destiny. We're talking about ornaments. National Coming Out Day. Hey there, folks. October 11th was National Coming Out Day, a day of awareness, education, and solidarity for the LGBTQIA+ community. It's a day celebrating the act of being your true self and an encouragement to change the world by embracing you. If you missed our blog post celebrating National Coming Out Day, please check it out. And don't forget to grab the transmat effect and wallpapers that are available in it too. Destination Materials Update. All right, Guardians, it's time to discuss the changes around our destination materials. So let's hand the mic over to design lead Josh Kalinsky. Josh, hey Guardians, Josh Kalinsky here again to talk to you about the destination materials. You know all of those dusklight shards, helium filaments, and microphasic data lattices that you've had sitting in your inventory for years? We've taken a lot of time to evaluate their place within Destiny 2 and have decided that in Season 19 these items will say goodbye. But why have we made this change and what does it mean for you all as we explore the various destinations in Destiny 2? Well, read on and you'll find out. Starting in Season 19, players will no longer be able to obtain the following items: dusklight shards, microphasic data lattice, helium filaments, barian bows, spin metal leaves, glacial starwort. The key word here is obtain. Unlike previous currencies that we have removed from the game, these materials will not be fully deprecated, but I'm getting ahead of myself. More on that in a bit. A simpler economy. First and foremost, we have to talk about why we decided to make this change. After all, these materials have been part of the DNA of Destiny since the very beginning. The simplest answer is that Destiny has grown to become a much more complex game than it started as all those years ago. One of the major goals that we have on the economy team for Destiny 2 is making the game more approachable to new and returning players. One way that we can do that is by reducing the number of currencies that players need to understand and keep track of. This helps us reduce the cognitive load that Destiny's economy places on the player. With fewer currencies to manage, it'll be easier for players to learn and remember the value of the items that they have in their inventories. Removing these materials also benefits players by freeing up inventory space and making it easier to find the items they are looking for. Times they are exchanging. The first thing many of you are probably asking as you read this is, what about the material exchange? And I'll let you know it's not going away. Master Rahul will continue to provide the services that Spider once did, although there will be some changes. As mentioned a bit earlier, these materials will not be fully deprecated as we have done with the destination materials in the past. Instead, Rahul will continue to accept any destination material that you may have stored up over the years, although we'll see them exchanged at a lower rate than they had previously, and Rahul will no longer sell destination materials to players. Starting in Season 19, Rahul will now exchange 5,000 Glimmer for a stack of 20 destination materials. If players have less than 20 of a material in their inventory, Rahul will exchange 250 Glimmer for each individual material offered up by the player. Once Season 19 begins, this will be the only use for destination materials moving forward, so you can safely exchange all of your materials and free up that inventory space. However, there are some new items that Master Rahul has found an interest in. Starting in Season 19, players can exchange excess dark fragments, phantasmal fragments, and Here Always pieces at Rahul in exchange for Glimmer. Finally, the cost of exchanging legendary shards for Glimmer remains unchanged. Enhancement Prism and Ascendant Shard costs will see destination material costs removed and replaced with legendary shard costs. New costs. Public service. Now that you know about the changes to the material exchange, you are probably thinking, well, there goes the easiest way to get Glimmer, and that's not lost on us. To offset this, we want to take an opportunity to breathe new life into a part of the Destiny 2 gameplay loop that maybe doesn't get as much attention as it used to: public events. In Season 19, public events will be getting a big Glimmer boost, especially the heroic versions. So the next time you see Fallen mining for Glimmer on the EDZ, take a moment to hop off your Sparrow and help your fellow Guardians take home some of that sweet shimmering Glimmer for yourselves. When completing heroic public events, players can expect to earn between 10K and 12.5K Glimmer. When completing normal public events, players can expect to earn between 3,300 and 4,645 Glimmer. These are raw numbers without Glimmer boosting mods or bonuses enabled. The price of change. As mentioned earlier, the only use for destination materials will be at Rahul's Material Exchange. That means that anything that previously cost the player destination materials, such as purchasing exotic weapons at the Monument to Lost Lights, will see some updates. In the case of these legacy exotic weapons, the destination material cost will be replaced with a legendary shard cost. Raid exotics, such as Anarchy and T.W.A.B, will see no change to their current costs. Other items that once saw destination materials as part of their purchase cost, such as upgrade modules, enhancement prisms, and ascendant shards, will simply see the destination material cost removed entirely, with no further changes to their current price points. Mod Squad. In a world without destination materials, there are a few ghost mods that need to be addressed. First, the 3 materialism mods, Crucible, Gambit, Vanguard, will be removed at the start of Season 19. Additionally, the Bountiful Harvest mod's functionality has changed. Equipping this mod to your Ghost will now increase Glimmer when harvesting from resource nodes. I'm living in a material world, and I am a material guardian. The primary source of destination materials has always been resource nodes scattered across the various destinations in Destiny. Those resource nodes are not going anywhere, and it's still in every player's best interest to collect from any of the nodes you see along your journeys. As many players noticed with the release of the Witch Queen, the deposits of fundamental osmium found around Savathun's throne world did not grant a currency, but instead delivered Glimmer, XP, and reputation directly to the player. Though we will not be creating new reputation systems for our previous destination vendors such as Devrim, Failsafe, Petra, and others at this time, we will be working to improve these experiences. In fact, Devrim K and Failsafe, our longest tenured destination vendors who have been with us since the Red War, will be getting a small update in Season 19. The reputation systems that saw players turning in destination materials to gain reputation ranks have been removed. This also means that there are no longer rank requirements to purchase armor from these vendors. Additionally, the ghost shells and emblems that were once earned by our reputation rank increases can now be purchased directly from Devrim or Failsafe for 10 legendary shards each. We have also increased the number of daily bounties that Devrim and Failsafe offer from 3 to 4. Though we don't have repeatable bounties to add to these destinations at this time, it brings us closer to parity across all of the destination vendors. Finally, we will be removing the sale of sunset weapons from both vendors when the season goes live. This is largely to prevent players from wasting resources on weapons that cannot be upgraded to the current level cap. Destiny Brazil has entered the chat. As I mentioned at the beginning of the TWAB, we are passing the mic like a hot potato to a bunch of teams today. This section is another one of those, so let's gather around and see what our LATAM community manager Bruno has to say. Bruno, this TWAB could also be this week at Brazil, since we launched our social media channels for Brazil on Tuesday. Oba! If you want to get updates in Portuguese, just go and drop us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Brazil is a wonderful country with passionate players, talented artists, and outstanding creators, like Everson Mito, who we featured in Community Focus not so long ago. With the launch of new international social media channels, the reach of our communications will now go a bit further and give us the capacity to better support international players. Understanding the needs of different parts of the world and gathering feedback in a more direct way will for sure help us deliver a better Destiny experience. So let's not mince words here and celebrate. This is a big step for us and we couldn't be happier. See you Starside, Guardiois. Mid-season weapons tuning. Last week, we had a nice chat with the weapons team covering a wide array of questions. They also touched on some plans for weapon tuning coming in the mid-season patch next week. Associate Designer Mercules is back again to give more details on the what and the why for the weapon changes coming in 6.2.5. Mercules. Hello everyone, Mercules here. We have a lot to talk about in this mid-season patch from a weapons standpoint, so let's dive right in. One note before we get started. When we say ease of use, we usually mean one or a combination of the following things: stability, aim assist, recoil direction, body shot time to kill, TTK, or optimal time to kill percentage, i.e., requiring a weapon that requires 100% critical shots to achieve optimal TTK is lower ease of use, and a weapon requiring 50% critical shots to get optimal is higher ease of use. We've seen this question asked a lot and wanted to address it up front so that in the future you can have a better idea of where we are looking at when we say we want to address the ease of use of a certain weapon for balance purposes. Weapon archetypes. Auto rifles. Auto rifles see strong usage in most PvP activities, around 25%, but that drops to around 13% in endgame PvP, e.g. Trials of Osiris. We often hear suggestions that we should decrease the TTK or increase the range of auto rifles, but we have investigated those options and found that with very minor changes to either, they can quickly become oppressive across PvP sandboxes. As it stands, several high-impact 360 RPM and precision frame 450 RPM auto rifles are already capable of outranging hand cannons, and at least one adaptive frame can as well, and we do not want them wholeheartedly competing with pulse rifles in the 40 meters plus ranges. In addition, even a single bullet reduction in TTK places many auto rifle subfamilies into best-in-class lethality. As such, we have decided to lean more heavily into increasing their ease of use and making them feel better to shoot within their optimal ranges, with a substantial buff to stability. Although the change is only to the high end of the stat curve, the change affects all stat values above 0, with increasing effects as you get to higher stat values. Precision frame auto rifles specifically have languished since the Uriel's Gift meta of early Destiny 2, and because they are inherently so stable, they did not benefit much from the change outlined above. As such, we have slightly brought their critical hit multiplier up to increase their critical hit damage, which, combined with the body shot damage buff from last season, puts them in a much stronger position without directly lowering optimal TTK. General: increase the effects of the stability stat on recoil reduction by around 20% at the high end. Precision frames: increase the crit damage multiplier from 1.5 times to 1.55 times. Crit damage goes from 30 to 31. Bows: as mentioned in a previous TWAB, we want to reduce the effectiveness of max speed bow swapping as a strategy, as it is functionally fast enough that it is nearly impossible to counter in high-level gameplay. The below change is not massive, but should move the total time for a bow swap kill to be closer to other primary weapons' optimal TTK, giving players a better opportunity to fight back against it. Increased bow stow duration varies by subfamily and handling stat. Before, 0 to 100 handling stat, lightweight frame 0.4 seconds to 0.2 seconds. Precision frame 0.433 seconds to 0.2 seconds. After, 0 to 100 handling stat, lightweight 0.45 seconds to 0.3 seconds. Precision 0.48 seconds to 0.33 seconds. Pulse rifles. Pulse rifles are strong in the current sandbox, both due to the reduced dominance of other mid to long-range weapons and the availability of multiple easily acquirable, craftable strong options. In addition, a few balance passes back, we buffed their range a moderate amount, but in the current sandbox we no longer feel they need that help across the board. As such, we have removed the range bonus at the low end while retaining it at the high end to continue rewarding those who spec into range without giving the same advantage to those who do not. We also felt that there was not enough of a difference in the feel of weapon handling across pulse rifle subfamilies, so we have rebalanced the stat to decrease the effects slightly at the low end and raise them at the high end. Adaptive frame 390 RPM pulse rifles have not been favored since the bygone era, and we believe this change will be enough to increase their strength relative to other pulse rifles without pushing them too far into meta territory. As for rapid frame 540 RPM pulse rifles, Peace of Mind has an out-of-band zoom stat that allows it to compete at longer ranges than would be expected for the subfamily, so it will be the first of multiple zoom outliers we will be looking at bringing in line over the next season. General: rebalance the effect of the handling stat across pulse rifles. The handling stat affected a weapon's ready, stow, and aim down sight speed. Increase effects of handling by 5% at the high end. Mostly affects lightweight and adaptive frame pulse rifles. Reduced effects of handling by 2% at the low end, mostly affects high-impact and rapid-fire frame pulse rifles. Adjusted damage fall-off scale based on the range stat. 0 range, reduced from 16 meters to 15 meters. 100 range, unchanged. Adaptive frame pulse rifles. Increase the precision multiplier from 1.6 times to 1.65 times. Crit damage goes from 30.4 to 31.4. This allows a weapon to kill Guardians below Tier 4 resilience with 6 crits, 2 bursts, in 0.6 seconds. Rapid-fire frame pulse rifles, Peace of Mind base zoom reduced from 19 to 18. Scout rifles. When we buffed high-impact 150 RPM scout rifles last season, the main goal was to get them up off the floor by reducing how punishing hitting body shots was. We overbuffed them a bit, going so far as to make the optimal TTK more forgiving against low resilience as well. This has made them slightly too easy to use for a weapon with functionally unlimited range. The below change to damage will take their optimal TTK back to requiring 3 crits across all resilience values while retaining the change to body shot TTK from the previous balance pass. High-impact scout rifles. Reduce body damage from 42 to 40 and crit damage from 73.5 to 70. Sidearms. Interestingly, Sidearms have long had substantially less auto-aim range compared to damage range, a decision made many moons ago. With the removal of the auto-aim fall-off bonus from rangefinder, we felt that sidearms in general seemed lacking in the around 15-meter engagement distances, particularly on M&K, mouse and keyboard. As such, this change should bring them up to near parity with other weapons' auto-aim to damage fall-off ratios. For comparison's sake, sidearms with rangefinder should feel about the same after this change as they do in the game now, but sidearms without rangefinder should feel notably better. General, increased auto-aim fall-off distance by 30% across the board. Submachine guns. We want to be very careful touching submachine guns, SMGs, as we believe that most of them are in a good place within their intended ranges. However, in-game and in playtests, it has become apparent that some SMGs can be used well outside of this distance effectively, and it has made it difficult for other weapons to compete. We have addressed a couple of outliers individually, but have also made changes to rein in how strong SMGs are once damage fall-off begins. As mentioned above, some outliers in the precision frame, 600 RPM subfamily of SMGs have out-of-band zoom values to the point that they can overstep the effective ranges of some auto rifles. These outliers have made it difficult to justify tuning precision frames overall. At the same time, their 0.80 second optimal TTK makes them weak options against other SMGs, forcing them to rely on their high effective range and damage boosting perks in order to compete. Lightweight frame SMGs currently overlap too much with adaptive frames, so we're making a very small change that will help differentiate them. General. Reduced damage fall-off end, the distance at which their damage dealt by the weapon in hip fire reaches its lowest point. Aiming down sights extends this distance by a factor of the zoom, from 24 meters to 23 meters across the board. Precision frame SMGs. Increased base damage from 16 to 17, crit damage goes from 22.4 to 23.8. Reduce the zoom of Shiera's Wrath Adept, and friction fire from 16 to 15. Lightweight frame SMGs. Reduced base damage from 11 to 10.85, crit damage from 18.2 to 17.9. Fusion rifles. Precision frame fusion rifles have seen an uptick in usage since we buffed them to allow them to kill in 5 bolts, and they are sucking the air out of the room for other subfamilies due to their extreme high ease of use. The below change should make it slightly harder for players to maintain perfect vertical recoil without additional manual control of the bolt spread. Precision frame fusion rifles. Reduce the effect the intrinsic precision frame has on recoil direction by 50% for fusion rifles only. Glaives. Glaives have been difficult to counter when they have shield energy, but this change should address that. We will continue to keep an eye on glaive shield damage resistance in the future, especially when their improved hit registration changes come into effect in Season 19. Reduce glaive shield damage resistance versus players from 75% to 50%. Damage from player supers unchanged at 50%. Damage from non-players unchanged at 97.5%. Sniper rifles. We've made several changes to trying to make challenging a sniper rifle more feasible over the years, but ultimately the way flinch works made this tricky to do in a way that didn't make them feel worse to use, particularly in PvE. Under the hood, incoming damage causes a player's aim to deflect by an angle dependent on weapon type and damage amount, and then there's a spring force that pulls aim back down. For spring nerds out there, this is defined as a damping ratio and spring force, often called a settle time. We made a change in Season 19 that has significantly moved the needle in internal playtests. We've reduced the amount of flinch received in PvE to avoid adversely affecting that experience, but increased the settle time substantially. This means you'll continue to flinch away from your target without settling enough to shoot through flinch. Our goal is to discourage continuing to attempt to snipe when you're already under fire. The experience of sniping while not under fire won't change. General. Increase the settle time after receiving flinch by 60%. Reduced received flinch in PvE. Now that this has had sufficient playtest time, we're making a similar change to linear fusion rifles in Season 19. Trace rifles. Like auto rifles, trace rifles have not been popular at high levels of play outside of some particularly niche builds. When we investigated ways to improve their performance, we found that a small increase in damage had a dramatic and negative effect in terms of how it felt to play against them. Imagine consistently being killed by an out-of-bounds with Rampage at 30 to 35 meters. And their range is quite respectable on its own. Indeed, what we found was that the lack of stability made it difficult for most trace rifles to be used at the farther points of their intended engagement ranges because it was difficult to sustain precision fire on moving targets. So we have increased their stability by an even larger amount than we did auto rifles. At high stability stats, this should make trace rifles feel much more like laser beams and less like recoiling Ghostbusters proton packs. General. Increase the effect the stability stat has on recoil reduction at the low end of the stability stat by around 10%, at the high end of the stat by around 25%. Rocket launchers. Although rocket launchers see passable usage in PvP, they lag far behind other heavy weapons like linear fusion rifles and heavy grenade launchers in effectiveness, due in large part to their inability to get multiple kills per magazine without targets being grouped closely together. With an increase to blast radius, this should make it noticeably easier to net kills on targets that are not right next to the center of the blast. General. Increase blast radius by 0.4 meters across the board. Perks. Gut shot straight. We had multiple reports that the audio was triggering frequently enough to be annoying, so we have removed the audio cue from activation. General. Removed audio from activation. Rangefinder. Rangefinder has long been one of the flat-out strongest perks in the game across multiple archetypes of weapons due to how effective zoom is at improving multiple aspects of weapon performance combined with the fact that it has a neutral activator. It does not require getting a kill or dealing damage to activate. The bonus of increasing auto-aim fall-off distance by 20% put this perk into a league of its own in terms of power, as it massively increases the ease of use of certain weapon types well beyond even the increased engagement range provided by the zoom and makes it difficult for any other perks to compete without substantial power creep. As such, we have made the decision to retain the zoom bonus but remove the auto-aim fall-off bonus. We expect the perk to remain a top choice, but it will be less dominant compared to other options. General. Remove the additional 20% bonus on aim assist fall-off. Exotics. Jade Rabbit. Jade Rabbit has a unique stat package compared to almost all other high-impact scout rifles in the game and has massively high aim assist and stability. The aim assist puts the weapon's ease of use well above what we find to be acceptable for a weapon with nearly unlimited range and a fast optimal TTK, now that high-impact scout rifles are performing comparatively better than they have been in the past. The time has come to bring Jade Rabbit more in line with the upper end of other scout rifles in this subfamily. General. Reduced aim assist by 20%. Lord of Wolves. When we nerfed Lord of Wolves for PvP, we mentioned that it was the first part of a larger rework we were planning for the weapon aimed at making it more competitive in PvE content. Right now, the Release the Wolves perk reduces accuracy by a substantial amount, with the intention that it would be useless against small targets, but still land shots on larger targets. The increased spread meant that it was difficult to land critical hits even on large targets without having to be dangerously close to them. In content where the extra damage matters, this could often be a lethal experience, so we have reduced the accuracy penalty by 70%. It should still be inaccurate enough that using Release the Wolves in PvP against Guardians will not be effective, but it will make it much easier to consistently hit critical hits on big targets in PvE without needing to be right next to them. When Release the Wolves is active, reduce to aim down sight ADS accuracy penalty 10x to 3x. Remove the 25% universal base damage buff. Added a 40% additional PvE damage buff. Removed the 50% critical hit multiplier penalty. Added full auto as an intrinsic perk. No time to explain. This gun has been dominant in PvP for much of the last season, topping the trial's usage and kill charts week in and week out. However, we had to be careful in tuning this weapon because its dominance is not universal. This weapon sees over twice the usage and dramatically higher effectiveness on M&K than it does on controller. For example, on M&K, No Time to Explain, NTTE, makes up 29.9% of all pulse rifle usage in PvP and accounts for 31.1% of pulse rifle kills. On controller, No Time to Explain is 12.3% of pulse rifle usage and only 12.5% of pulse rifle kills. With M&K having higher stability, accuracy, and auto-aim, two bursts from NTTE are much easier to achieve in that sandbox, so we needed to tune it in a way that the difference was noticeable on M&K but did not ruin gun feel for controller players. At the same time, we also wanted skilled players to continue to be able to use the weapon effectively while lowering the overall ease of use to make it more difficult to perform well with the weapon. We tested several changes and decided on a significant reduction to the recoil direction stat, which spreads out the burst pattern a noticeable but not uncontrollable amount, paired with a reduction in the aim assist. We believe the weapon will remain a viable option in high-level gameplay, but will be less dominant compared to other weapons operating within the same range, especially given the changes to the whole pulse rifle archetype. Reduced recoil direction stat from 90 to 73. Reduced aim assist stat from 45 to 40. Risk Runner. Risk Runner is a very niche weapon with a very niche strength, but 50% damage resistance in PvP with the perk active is far out of band from where we would like neutrally triggered damage resistance options to exist. We have reduced it down to 15%, which is still among the highest damage resistance options available, while at the same time making it less of a free win option versus other players who are using arc weapons. Reduced damage resistance versus players when arc superconductor is active from 50% to 15%. Future items. In addition to the items mentioned in last week's TWAB, we wanted to make note of a few more things we are looking at tuning sometime in the next season, not necessarily at launch. Special ammo linear fusion rifles, Lorentz driver and arbalist. Auto aim reduction, flinch tuning. Machine gun balancing. Make them a better heavy option in PvP. Reduce the difference between them and other heavy weapons in PvE. Make them less punishing to use for ad clearing. Remove damage penalty to Dead Man's Tail at 5 stacks of cranial spike. Player Support Report. Catch me if you can. The Destiny Player Support team is back this week for their turn with the mic to give us next week's maintenance times and some known issues that are hanging around. Help Center Update. Earlier this week, help.bungie.net received an update and now requires players to sign into the site when submitting tickets. This will keep track of any tickets you submit and the status of them. One bug that was introduced is that after signing in when clicking on a contact form, it will take players back to the home page. We hope to get this resolved soon. If you have issues with the Help Center, please submit a report in our Help Forum. Update 6.2.5. Next Tuesday, October 18th, Destiny 2 Update 6.2.5 will be released. View our Destiny server and update status page for maintenance times, as well as the timeline below. All times are Pacific. 9 a.m., Destiny 2 maintenance begins. 9:45 a.m., Destiny 2 is brought offline. 10 a.m., Destiny 2 Update 6.2.5 will begin rolling out across all platforms and regions. 11 a.m., Destiny 2 maintenance completes. Known issues. While we continue investigating various known issues, here's a list of the latest issues that were reported to us in our #Help Forum. Players can sometimes die when transporting to the Nightmare Realm in the Duality Dungeon. The Duality Introductory Quest does not count Master Mode completion for the quest's objective. The Gyrfalcon Hauberk Exotic Hunter chest piece has been disabled. The Dawn Course Exotic Warlock Helmet does not appear in collections. The Cry Mutiny Heavy Grenade Launcher incorrectly appears in the Special Grenade Launcher section of collections. Some players are unable to place relics from the pirate hideouts in the helm and have to use alternate characters. For a full list of emergent issues in Destiny 2, players can review our Known Issues article. Players who observe other issues should report them to our #Help Forum. Lore and Laughs, Movie of the Week. Hippie, not even gonna lie, this is a Fallen appreciation post. From Mithrax to Ido, there's an entire spectrum of incredible characters and story elements that this microcosm of people offers to the world of Destiny 2. Much like real life, not all of that lore is sunshine, roses, and cuddly little Smallin. Sometimes it's heartbreaking. Sometimes it's infuriating. Sometimes it's a feeling of relief at seeing that history and that future for the Fallen formulate into something truly special. That's exactly why this video is something that we just had to share. There's an appreciation for that rich history and potential that is infectious, and we hope you enjoy this as much as we did. Movie of the Week, The Fallen, Destiny 2 Lore. Sam, sometimes we pick out a movie of the week that makes you pause and think, like the one Hippie has above. This one is responsible for me needing a new keyboard because I spit my Sprite Zero all over it from laughing the entire time. Movie of the Week, Jar of Dirt. Spooky Pirates, Thorn Girl, and Love, Artist of the Week. Bruno, Destiny has a lot of beloved characters. Old reliable fellows like Zavala and Ikora, but also new ones that everyone cares for and want to protect, like Ido or Mithrax. This makes choosing a character to focus on when drawing a little bit harder, I know. So let's just embrace them all and call it a day. Art of the Week, Spooky Pirates. Ivan. This week it was especially hard to choose #AOTW because of so much great art. But this spiky, poisony gothic goddess stole my heart. Admit it, she has charm. And the rose on the sweater is such a great detail. Well done, at Oryx and Croat. Art of the Week, Thorn Girl. Hippie. Not to intrude on the art section this week, but with Bungie's recent blog post, we wanted to include one more bonus piece from the community that offers a simple reminder. You are not alone. Bonus Art of the Week, You are not alone. Wipes brow. There we have it, Guardians, this week's TWAB. We know it was a lot of info to share all at once, so please feel free to sound off on socials with any questions you may have. We are always learning and adjusting our communication methods, so we appreciate your time in responding to us with that kind of information. Okay, it's time to get back out there. Thank you for hanging out with us today, and we will see you next week with our favorite masks on for Festival of the Lost. Stay crafty, Sam. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the audio TWAB for October the 13th, 2022. If you would, down below me here, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like, you can follow me across all social media at HDTGeorge. And as always, remember, fight the status quo.